Okay. Okay. Really, your task here is to just listen to me and psychoanalyze me through the medium of the things I choose to tell you. Is that your experience of the podcast?
I just think that
I'm perfectly happy with that.
I just think that everything means something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And one thing I love about you and our friendship is that you know that everything means something.
Yeah.
What we like is important. The stories we tell ourselves and the stories we want to participate in mean something.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the stories we choose to engage with, right.
Exactly.
1, 2, 3, 4. If you can do all your stuff, what can figure it out? That's how it chooses you.
Welcome to It Chooses You, the podcast where we discuss passions large and small.
Well, that's great.
Like it?
Done. Make that the top. Look at you. Handling all the shit. That over there is Claire Patton.
Hello. This over here is Teresa Sparks.
Hello. Today on It Chooses You, Claire's going to be telling me about shit. Hold on, no, I've got it. It's visible mending.
That's right. Teresa Sparks will be telling me about Bondi Rescue.
That's right. I just want to tell you why lifeguards are hot. It's a pretty easy task.
Teresa, what the hell is Bondi Rescue?
So Bondi Beach is a reality. It's reality television about the lifeguards who work Bondi Beach in Australia. The lifeguards are called the Boys and Girls in Blue because they wear like aquamarine blue shorts, and their lifeguard boards, probably not what they're called, are blue as well. I like Bondi Rescue because imagine if your plumber was really good at paddling in water. That's basically what it is. It's a bunch of working class people who have grown up on the beach and are really good in the water, on a board and off of a board, on various kinds of boards even. Apparently there's more than one kind of board. And they're really good at swimming, and they call them watermen. They're good watermen. Bondi Beach is a semicircle beach, and it's like 1 kilometer long. It's huge.
And this is Australia?
Sydney. Outside of Sydney. I'm unclear, maybe southeast? Maybe? I haven't looked at a map. I'm pretty sure southeast part of Sydney. The question, yeah.
Is Sydney the capital of Australia?
It's the biggest city. God, is it the capital? What else would it be? Canberra? Adelaide? Here, hold on. Okay, what is the capital of Australia? Canberra.
You were accidentally right again.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. We forgot that Melbourne even exists. Canberra. Fuck. Okay. I'm going to thank my father, Alan Sparks, for that, because he just made me learn a bunch of capitals, and apparently I remembered them. So, yeah. So anyway, Bondi Beach is outside Sydney, which is a big tourist attraction, the Opera House and all that. And it's 1 kilometer long, and they regularly get like 40,000 people on the beach.
Half of which are idiot tourists.
Correct.
I'm sure.
Correct. Half of which are idiot tourists who, tourists in general are idiots. And if you're a tourist, no matter whether you're intelligent at home or not, you're an idiot. It's just part of the deal. From countries that don't speak English. And they come and they're like, hey, we're going to have a good time. And that's awesome. Welcome. Come and have a good time. But they can't read the dangerous current signs. They can't read the signs that tell them where they're supposed to swim. They don't know how to. And half of them literally can't swim. Like the rescues that you see on Bondi Rescue, these people are paddling out to rescue people whose heads are underwater because they've been caught in a rip current and can't get back. And they're like, oh no, I can't swim. I can't swim. They're saving people who can't read the signs and don't know they're in danger and who are willing to go in the water when they can't swim. Which boggles my mind. Like, if I couldn't swim, I can swim. I consider myself a decent swimmer. And I would not want to go out in the ocean and swim past where I could put my feet down. Because the ocean's really fucking powerful.
So is there anything particular about this area that is more dangerous? Land or aquatic features that make it less safe?
Yes, there are rocks at either end. So it's a rock-walled sandy beach. It faces east. So north end and south end are rocks. And rocks under the water, rocks that are partially covered by water, rocks that come in and out of the water depending on the tide. Height, not that the rocks wash in with the tide.
Right.
Please understand that that's not a thing that the tide can do, everybody. This is not a science podcast. Again, the thing about any beach, and we don't really see it, like I think probably, well, maybe not you, because you're from Texas, maybe you're more familiar with the Gulf, but the Gulf and the Atlantic coast, like, we don't get really strong rip currents because they're not sheltered beaches. It's basically just a big long stretch of beach that's relatively straight that goes on for about 1,000 miles. I mean, it's not as intense in formation as the east coast of Australia is. And so we get rip currents that are pretty chill. Now, a rip current is how the water that comes in with the tide actually gets pulled back out to sea. So the tide goes in and out, and that raises and lowers the water. But no matter where the tide is in its progression, there are rip currents on every beach pulling water back out.
Right.
Because if it all just came in, the ocean would suck up the land, and it would just all be ocean, which is not something that has happened.
It's not real.
Yeah, that's not real. But I think the reason, and I didn't Google this, but I think the reason the rip currents at Bondi are so strong is that it's that semicircle shape. And so all this water's coming in, and it has to sort of get out quickly. And the waves are a little bit higher than Atlantic waves, as a rule. So there's a little more, beach science, whatever. There's more beach science happening. So the rip currents are strong because it's carrying a lot of water out. A rip current is basically a river that's flowing under the surface of the water that flows from the beach to the sea and will take your tiny human body and send it a mile out into the sea like that. And people are letting their kids, because they don't read the signs or can't read the signs, letting their children swim and be pulled out to sea. And the kids are like, but I couldn't get back in. I started swimming back and I wasn't making it. I was like, why would you let a 5-year-old child swim in the ocean if they don't know what a rip current is? It's just really shocking to me. I'm not talking about how all these tourists are stupid, although that's definitely an undercurrent of my experience of the show.
Undercurrent?
Thank you. Really what I'm talking about is how good-natured these lifeguards are. Because they're basically saving morons from death all day, every day.
Using mastery,
which is, your eyes got all sparkly when you said that. Why is that important?
Well, I'm seeing a common thread with Crowhurst, which is this question for you, this theme of mastery versus ignorance, and the spectrum that is. And also because it requires mastery to pull you out of your own ignorance, whether someone else's or your own.
These are working class people who just have grown up in the water and they really love it. And I looked at their salaries because I was curious. Like, they're on a television show, but they're paid by the city, and so it's reality TV with no like endorsement opportunities or any of that, because they're essentially service workers of a very particular and valuable kind, right? It's mostly dudes. It's like 98% dudes. There's occasionally a lady. They're all fit and mostly symmetrical and attractive, and they're all tan, and they have beach hair because they work on the beach. So that's nice. That's a nice part. It's like, look at him run. oh gosh, he's getting out on that board. So there's a little bit of, it's very nice. But they also, for the most part, seem like the kind of people who would come to a dinner party and would be like a little too loud and having just a little bit more fun than everyone in the room, but you would like them for that, and you'd be like, I could be having that much fun. Please let me figure out how to be having as much fun as these people are having. This is great. And they're also the kind of dudes, anyway, I don't know about the ladies, because they have a smaller part, because there are fewer of them. But the dudes are always like, you know the guy that you invite to a party, and it's like a mixed generation party of some kind, like a family reunion or a major national holiday, and you have like your grandmas there, and then your aunts and uncles come in and out, and your cousins or whatever. These dudes all seem like the kind of people who are perfectly willing to seriously flirt with your grandma because it makes her happy. And I love them for that. It's
That's
like,
lovely.
Yeah, it is. Like, you're looking so good today, darling. You know, like, oh, look at that. I love that hat on you. And your grandma's like, oh, he's so handsome. Yeah, and they seem like they would be perfectly willing to do that and have a good time.
Sweet.
But yeah, it is very sweet. The other side of that, though, is that so many of them can't understand why they can't find a woman to settle down with, and they don't see that those 2 points may be related. Their willingness to flirt seriously with anyone and the fact that they can't find a partner. They don't spend a lot of time talking about their personal lives, but for a couple of them, they're like, I don't want to date. I want to get married. I haven't found the right girl. And I'm like, you literally run up and down the beach being flirted with by ladies in bikinis all day. I feel like if you're not finding someone to date, you're probably just not putting the effort in. That's my sense. The show itself is interesting because, I mean, it's formulaic like all reality TV. It's the same thing and a little different every time. Except that the same thing here is dudes in a tower looking through binoculars out on the ocean, and they call it, I've got a head, I've got a head. If they see just the head of the person bobbing on this roughly on the surface of the water, they know that person is having trouble and needs to be rescued. And so they're not scanning for people. They're scanning for a very particular visual signature, which is a tiny little head bobbing up down in the water. Now, the lifeguard tower is in the center of the beach. The beach is 1 kilometer long. So they're looking, I'm going to say mile and kilometer are interchangeable because I can't keep saying kilometer. So they're looking half a mile away. And they're like, oh my God, I've got a head at the south end of the beach is in parentheses. I've got a head at the south end. Somebody needs to get down there. So they're on radios, and then there's someone stationed on the beach who gets in a car, a little beachy car, and drives down and runs in and saves the person. So it's a coordinated effort, as you would expect it to be. But imagine 40,000 people on the beach and in the water. And they're scheduled for shifts that appear to be 10 hours long, which makes me worry about how tired they are of looking at the beach at the end of the shift, right? So I get I'm like, I don't know if I want to go swimming there. It makes me a little nervous. They all talk about when they go out to rescue someone, how much of how worried they are for the people. And I've seen them pull out just, in every episode, person after person who doesn't know that they were in trouble sometimes, who can't speak English and can't be, they can't take direction. Like, you're supposed to lay in a particular position to be brought in on the life board, which is not what it's called, and they won't do it. They'll sit with their butt up in the air, or turn around, and make it really hard to actually get back in. It's just a collection of people furiously working to kill themselves. And these good-natured Australian people, please don't kill yourself today. I can't let you kill yourself on my shift. That will really impact me negatively. Please come back onto the beach. That's the entire.
Don't do it.
Just
here.
don't do it. And they're like, what? And they're all flopping around. And the ones who speak English are like, well, you look like you're having trouble. And they're like, yeah, I can't swim. Yeah, I can't swim. I just don't understand, Claire. You can't swim and you get in a beach where the waves are 5 feet tall. That's significant. So part of me watching the show is that person deserves to be in trouble. You should struggle out there. You've totally fucked up and you need to know that you fucked up. Holy shit. But also, please don't die. Please get out there and save them before they die.
So there is an aspect of seeing people learn a lesson?
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah,
the potential for a lesson to be taught.
Yeah. A little bit of appropriate consequence. And actually one of the lifeguards, what's his name? They call him H-Man. His name is Harry Nightingale. Look him up. He's a fascinating dude. He, at one point, he's like, yeah, if I'm watching them and I'm close enough to get to them, if they really get in trouble, I'll let them struggle for a while so that they understand what's going on. And I'll go out there and get them a little later. As long as I know that they're going to be okay and I can get to them, I'll let them experience what that is so that they don't fucking do it again. And I was like, you're the best.
And the fact that he's able to distinguish the two.
Right? They look at them and I was like, oh, I recognize a head bobbing in and out. And there's something I remember from, that Stevie Smith poem, Not Waving But Drowning?
I don't think I do.
Stevie Smith was a British poet. I think she died of cancer young or something like that. Anyway, she's cool. The only poem I remember of hers is a poem called Not Waving But Drowning, and it's a story about what a drowning looks like from the beach. Because it looks like they're waving hello, right? Because you're basically just bobbing up and down in the water. That's like a textbook drowning. A way that a person looks when they're drowning, when they can't swim well enough to move themselves from where they are, when they're too tired or just can't swim at all, don't know the technique, and they're having problems staying afloat. They'll go down, they'll come back up. They'll go down, they'll come back up. And they look like a little cork bobbing in the water. And the lifeguards call that climbing the ladder because they're trying to get out, they're using their body but they're using it all the wrong ways because they don't know how to operate in the water. And so that's one sign. And they can scan a beach of 40,000 people and be like, that person is having trouble. Everyone else is fine, but that person's having trouble. And I think that's just an amazing ability. And part of what gives them that ability is that they know where the sandbars are. There are riptides that you can see from the tower, and no one's allowed to swim there, but they do. But it's easier to see people who swim there, because most people don't. Less concentration of people. But then where the waves come in, where it's safe to swim, there are sandbars that then will suddenly drop off at the edge of a rip. And so you could be standing in waist-deep water and having a grand old time, and a wave comes in and knocks you a couple feet to the left, and then you're in over your head, and you can't swim, and you're being dragged out to sea. And that's how fast it happens. So part of what I like about it is how it's the contrast between how chill these people are. Oh, man, I had to pull a 3-year-old out of the water. She's just been floating, and nobody saw her, and I had to give her mouth-to-mouth on the board, and, man, it was hectic. And of course the kid lives, and they're really worried, like their emotional involvement is real. It was hectic. Like, hectic for me is like, I've got 2 papers due, and I also would like to try and walk the dogs today. Like, that's my hectic.
Yeah, sure.
Theirs is like, of these 50,000 people, there's one floating up in, and gosh, I've got to go get her and save her life. Whew, that was hectic. Like, you guys are fucking, this is just amazing. I feel like that is like one piece of a very clear cultural difference between America and Australia. Because if that was an American show, the American lifeguards would be like, I'm talking about it now. Here's what you need to do, and you can't be on this beach if you're gonna, and they're just like, hey man, you okay? Be careful, don't swim here. Go up and swim between the red and yellow flags. They're just super chill about it all the time. And I can't tell if the reason they're chill is only cultural, or because they know how often it happens and how people survive it every day, or what.
I would guess that some of that is being exposed to such drama on a daily basis.
That's a good point.
When you go to the doctor and you're dealing with anything that makes you nervous, this is their job. This is every day. It helps me to realize that's just their daily lives.
Yeah.
Also, there's this other thing. If I have a bad day, a person may be frustrated with me, a customer or a client. But if my cousin, who's a doctor, has a bad day, someone dies. So it's probably a similar thing for them. I'm amazed at how much we humans can get used to.
Yeah.
We can acclimate to all kinds of situations.
Well, and that just made me reconfigure the sense I have of them, and I think maybe it has to do with them just being incredibly stable personalities. Just like, yeah, that's a thing that happens, and I can stop it. And they know that it's a thing that happens, and they can stop it, and they're just like, okay. Like, they don't get flustered. They don't freak out. Or if they do, they freak out, but they freak out with action. Like, I'm not sure what I should do, but I know the next step is this, so that's what I'm going to do. And then after that, I'll figure out what the next step is,
Did they ever lose someone?
Oh, yeah. So it's been on for like 14 seasons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's really interesting, too, because it's been on for 14 seasons, and the first, 6 or 7, the theme song is the same. It's the same lyrics and same tune. But it was done in a really hard rock style for the first 6 or 7 years. And then after that, they changed it to a more folky sounding. And I was like, oh, what an interesting adaptation. I wonder, why that happened. But I see in the cast and in the way that they're framing things, the show became less about, do you see what the fuck we have to deal with? Which kind of was the tone of the first few seasons, to now being like, man, these people are really putting themselves in danger, and that's a problem. Like, softer, And I wanted to look back, but I didn't, because I don't prepare. I wanted to look back and see if there was an election change or something, like political upheaval or something that happened after 6 seasons. I mean, we need to go with a little folkier vibe with this. We can't continue on the hard.
A shift in the culture.
Exactly. Like, Skid Row cannot sing the theme song to this.
You're gonna die in the tide.
That's exactly. You're gonna die in the tide is the theme song of Bondi Rescue. That's 100% correct. Oh my god. This episode is called Why I Love Bondi Rescue, aka You're Gonna Die in the Tide. From the beginning to now, it's like they're taken, at the beginning it was like, we've got a new trainee. Part of the drama of the show, because it can't just be about pulling rat, wet, dripping people out of riptides. Like, there has to be something else, I would think. I would be bored if it was just pulling rats out of the riptide.
You want layers.
Exactly. I want to know who these people are, which is how they chose to approach it too. Thanks. And the whole season is like, how's this new trainee doing? Is he gonna make the grade? And now it's like, yeah, we got 7 new trainees because there's less drama about the administrative side as the series has gone on.
Have you learned? I'm just fascinated that you know what someone who's drowning looks like.
Yeah. I only know that because of them.
Okay, that was the question.
Yeah, I only know that because of them and that poem I was telling you about. So when they said it, I was like, oh yeah, not waving but drowning. Cool. Like, I just had a little reference I could hook it to. I was like,
Right.
all right, great, I've got that now. There are also, like, 3 beaches in a row. There's Bondi, Tamarama, and Bronte. And they're all just, like, beach, headland, beach, you know? And they're all in Sydney, so they're not, like, super long. They're all, like, within the suburban Sydney area. And they're sort of responsible for all 3. But the other 2 are, like, really chill. Tamarama's smaller, and so the waves are taller, so it's a surfer's beach. Very few people go there with kids because the waves are so strong, and it's really dangerous, apparently. And they never go to Bronte, so I'm assuming that's just, like, the old guy sitting in the tower, and he's the only one. But it's, like, only 10 feet wide, so it's fine, I'm guessing. Never seen it. I'm guessing is my catchphrase.
There is a certain tenor to American reality shows of amping up the drama.
Yeah.
In general, I'd say the British reality shows I'm familiar with tend to be a bit gentler. Is there a tenor to the Australian reality show from your experience of this one show?
I've only ever watched... You know I'm not a fan of reality television. My empathy is overactive. I get so uncomfortable for everyone, asking them in my mind, what the hell are you doing to yourself? Why are you making this public? This tantrum is something that should happen in private with a glass of scotch and headphones on and white noise. What are you doing letting them film it? So I get really uncomfortable with reality TV and I don't watch it. So I don't know if I can make an overarching statement except to say that I know that Bondi Rescue is closer to the Great British Bake Off than it is to Jersey Shore. Yeah, so they're on a reality show, and they're paid, you know, the head lifeguards are paid £60,000 a year, which is something like 40 grand, which is like a reasonable working class salary. And they've all been, like I said, watermen, and some of them were pro surfers, and some of them, like, were pro surfers for a long time, and then retired to this, and as they're doing the trainee thing, like, they're bringing on new trainees because so many people decide that they can't continue doing it, probably for the reasons you were talking about. Like, it's very stressful to constantly have people's lives in your hands. So they retire, or they go to halftime, or they do things like that. The other thing I want to make sure to talk about is the nicknames they give each other. Because that feels like, I think maybe we've talked about it before. There's this idea from Emil Durkheim, the sociologist, that there's social facts. Like, you can look at the way you're wearing a toque and a cardigan made of cotton, and somehow that tells us just a huge amount about you and your place in the economic power structure and all of those things. The way these guys give each other nicknames seems to me to be that for Australia. So it's either first or last name. I don't notice a preference for whether you adjust the first name into the nickname or the last name, but it seems to be related to how easy it is to put an O or an E on the end of it.
Okay.
So if your last name is Beard, you're Beardy. If your name is Dunstan, you're Dunno. Or if your last name is Hopkins, you're Hoppo. Hoppo. And they call him Hoppo. He's the big boss. Hoppo. I'm like, okay, he's not like a Marx brother, but that's okay. This is the thing. Groucho, Zeppo, Gummo, Hoppo. Also, Gummo. Who the fuck talks about Gummo Marx? No one talks about Gummo Marx. That's my next episode. Why I love Gummo Marx. All right. Yeah. It's not the O's on a first name, right? The O can be on either, the E can be on either. But then sometimes they'll just give someone a completely new name. There's one guy whose name I thought was Harris, but with an E sound, Harry's. And I was like, well, Harry's is a verb, and it's a very unpleasant one. So I don't get, maybe it's just Harris and I'm not hearing it properly. No, it's Harry's. His name is not Harris. No Harris involved. No Harry, no nothing. I think his name is like Anthony or something. But that's what they call him. And I'm like, how the fuck does that come about? Unrelated to the name. When I decided I wanted to talk about Bondi Rescue with you was because of this one, actually, because of Harry's. At one point, there's something happening, I think, at the north end of the beach, and it's in the rocks, or like it's around the headland or something, and they can't get there from the ocean. It would take too long. And so Harry's, in his lifeguarding shorts, Speedo, puts on a Vespa helmet, gets on a motorbike, and is zooming through the suburbs of Sydney trying to get to someone who seems like they've been hurt in the water. And he's like, well, that's our job, and we're going to get there. And so he's zooming through, and you don't see him on the bike very often, but he handles the emergency. Whatever happens, happens. He gets back on, and he talks to the camera crew, and he's got on shades and his little Vespa helmet, and he's in his little Speedos on a Vespa. And he said, oh, it's time to get back to the beach. And I want that to be my ringtone, like, because it's just so ridiculous. I mean, he's just like this perfectly fit god on a tiny little bike with a giant round helmet and his mean cop shades, having just saved a life, and he's like, it's time to get back to the beach. That's his, like, and it's so unusual, like, no other scene has been like this. I'm like, that feels emblematic as well, the nicknames.
So it's not a catchphrasey show.
No, not at all. I think, actually, do you know what I think? I think I actually purchased episodes of Bondi. I think I actually bought a season or two. Because you can watch a lot of clips and stuff on YouTube, of course, as you can with any reality TV show. But I was like, I need to see all of it. And I was actually watching it. I had it on in the background while I was studying. Because I'm like, I like watching something dangerous that I know is going to be resolved while I'm doing something. Like, I just need some drama in the background. Just a little, just to like have a fine mist of danger in the air as I'm going about my daily business. This kid might drown, you guys. I gotta finish writing this paper.
I feel like this says a lot about us and our differences. Because I've actually been thinking about having things on in the background lately. And what I want from things on in the background is not a fine mist of danger.
Danger mist.
But a fine mist of friendship.
Oh.
So I like to feel like I'm around my friends.
Oh.
So I'll just choose whatever thing is familiar and friendly and not necessarily gentle, but...
That's very nice. I also have Bake Off on in the background quite a bit. They're also, like, in the way that people who deal with life and death on a daily basis, they're, like, darkly funny. So in addition to having 40,000 people at a time on this beach, the Australian, like, the holiday season is the summer season in Australia. You have that rocking southern hemisphere thing going on. Mm-hmm. So Christmas and New Year both are in the middle of summer. And I don't know if you've ever seen 25,000 drunk and hungover people on New Year's Day, dressed in fancy clothes, passed out on the beach, letting the tide wash them away. But until you have, you haven't seen Bondi Rescue. They get there in the morning on New Year's Day, they're like, oh my God, and they have to walk up and down the beach and just poke everyone. Make sure that everyone starts the day alive.
That's great.
It's the best. It's the best. And the people, like, roll over and they're like, oh my God. And some of them, like, roll over and then immediately vomit. Oh, it's so great. It's so great. On Christmas Day, one of the lifeguards always dresses up as Santa and surfs in on a board and then, like, throws candies to all the kids. Santa surfed in. Like, it's time for have sweets. Oh, so great. And they're constantly trying to up their Santa game. So sometimes...
Hold on a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does Santa Surfer wear shorts?
Santa Surfer wears full-on pant. He looks like Santa. Pants, fake Panza, red and white, hat, beard. Like, they go for it. Okay. They really go for it, yeah. Sometimes it's a surfboard, sometimes they'll jet ski in. I keep waiting for them to, like, parachute in one year, but that's a little dangerous. Also, in addition to sheer volumes of people, the number of people who try and swim drunk or stoned or whatever, like, it's interesting to me. If you're going to do that, like, take a nap. Don't try and swim in a riptide. That's my advice. Don't get drunk and swim in a rip. Seems straightforward, but you'd be amazed at how many people need to hear it. So if you would like to watch Bondi Rescue and see if you agree with me, you can find it in clip form, of course, on YouTube. And I think you can purchase it either from Netflix or Amazon Prime. I'm not sure which one.
Teresa?
Yeah.
I, too, enjoy reality shows which highlight people's mastery of a skill. I'm going to talk to you about Visible Mending, but in order to explain how I came upon it, I have to tell you about The Repair Shop, which is a show on Netflix. It's a British show about a group of craftspeople who repair and restore family heirlooms. And it is lovely. It is so wonderful to see a group of people lovingly restore an item that has become worn through life and love. Mm-hmm. And they always show the clients, and they tell a little bit about the story behind the item. Sometimes it's a childhood toy. Often it belonged to generations of people that have passed away or recently passed away loved one. And the other really interesting thing to me is that moment that the person decides to bring it in. Often it's, I've had this for 20 years and I need to fix it. So the motivation behind why it's often very sad, but it's a lovely, gentle show. And their skills and their thoughtfulness about what they're doing is unparalleled. And it's just lovely to watch. So that show had been recommended to me. I had been watching it. So I was thinking a lot about repair. I also think it's a good salve for our disposable culture.
Yeah.
I had been thinking about repair. That had been a bit of a theme for me as a concept and as an activity and what that means. It's also a very good activity for the winter when you perhaps can't go outside as often or maybe your social engagements are limited. I opened, I'm ashamed to say, a Martha Stewart magazine that I did not own, I will say. It was at a family member's house.
That's okay then.
I flipped through it. It was the February edition, and they had a piece on visible mending, which I would say I do love home activities. I love cooking. But I would not say homemaking. But I am not into Martha Stewart's magazine.
Yeah, fuck that bitch.
Yeah. So I feel like even though I'm into the similar activities to which her conglomerate focuses on, I am not into like 98% of what they would put in their magazine. So they had a piece on visible mending, which is mending a piece of clothing and having that mending show, as you might guess, as a highlight, to highlight the mending or to show it as a piece of decoration. So I started darning. I learned how to darn. I've been darning socks. And
does darning just mean mend?
Darning is a specific technique in which you are basically weaving the fabric back together.
Oh.
So you have a hole in your sock.
Yes.
You would stitch. I should also say I historically hate hand stitching anything, but I've gotten interested in it. And also when you get better at something, it turns out you get more interested.
Oh, interesting. Like things are more enjoyable when you have some skills. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you had a hole in your sock, you would basically stitch a square around that hole, giving yourself some extra fabric so that what you're sewing is incorporated into the good fabric of the sock. And then you sew a line of stitches either up and down or side to side. Either way, I do up and down first. And then you stitch side to side, weaving in between those threads that you've laid out. So effectively you're reweaving the fabric. Mm-hmm. And you can do that depending on what fabric you're working with. You can do that with thread. You can do that with embroidery floss, which is what I've been using. Where do you buy embroidery floss? Do you want to have the experience of repairing a piece of clothing in an act of care and thrift and have to go to a fabric store and buy 10 different colors of embroidery floss and spend $20? That's not in the spirit of this.
I was going to say, your tone is telling me, no, I don't want to do that.
You do not want to do that, Teresa. What you want to do is find your nearest creative reuse center, which if you're in Colorado, there's one in Boulder called Art Parts, which is fabulous. And there's one in Fort Collins called Who Gives a Scrap.
Oh, come on.
Just fly to Colorado, buy some weed, and go to Who Gives a Scrap. It's amazing. So these are places where people donate used paints, perhaps origami paper, lovely embroidery needles, and yarn and fabric. And you go to this place and very cheaply reuse something someone else was going to throw away.
That's wonderful.
It's genius.
I
think it must be a trend. It must be happening all over the country.
As we all start to sense the imminent collapse of society. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I went to Who Gives a Scrap because I live in northern Colorado, and I bought some embroidery floss, and I've been enjoying darning my socks. You do need a round surface on which to place the sock. So
this explains the wooden balls my grandma has. Okay.
Yes. They also have darning mushrooms, which give that shape, that rounded shape. Now, I also then got into mending some of my clothing. So I have a tank top that I love, that I've had forever, And I think it had about 30 holes in it, which sounds horrible, but I only ever wear it as an undershirt. And so I practiced on that. And I got this lovely embroidery floss that has multicolored. So it changes color. It's pink and then yellow and then blue. And so it creates this really lovely pattern. So I do the basic darning concept, but I'm doing it on a shirt instead of a sock. It in itself, it becomes a decoration. Mm-hmm. What I love about this is, as I said, it's very thrifty. Runs very contrary to our consumer culture.
Yeah, throwaway.
The consumer throwaway culture.
Fuck capitalism! Okay.
Yeah. But the thing I love about visible mending specifically is that it takes something very practical, which is mending a piece of clothing, and it makes it decorative. Mm-hmm. And it becomes a way in which you've invested time and energy in the garment, and you highlight that, and it becomes your own.
Well, it's like, this is how much I love this. Let me demonstrate visibly every time I wear it exactly how much I love this.
So once I practiced on the tank top and I got good, then I did sort of my nicer shirts and mm-hmm. items that I really care about. And people frequently say to me, I just thought that was decoration on your shirt. I just thought that was a cool shirt. I think visible mending, or mending in general, is the perfect end of the winter activity. Because back in the day when our lifestyles were more tied to the seasons, mm-hmm. we would do more indoor activities in the winter, and it'd be time to repair tools, and it'd be time to repair kitchen items and clothing. Conceive children. So I think it's a really nice internal activity and preparation for moving into the rest of the year, in which you need your house in order, so to speak.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Bringing things back to working condition. Mm-hmm. Yeah, whatever that means.
And bringing life back to your objects. I think that the objects we live with, and specifically the objects that we use, have a life to them. I think that there is a bit of spirit in that.
Okay, Marie Kondo.
Yeah, I know.
She's not wrong. I'm not dissing Marie Kondo, by the way. That chick knows what's up.
Yeah. So we are living on a piece of property that we hope to homestead and grow a good portion, if not all of our food on eventually. And so it's become really clear to us that we need to invest the money in superior tools, whether that's your boots or your hat or your shovel or your fencing. You need to invest money in those tools so that they last longer. And when you invest money in those tools so they last longer, you're going to take better care of them. And the items that we live with and that really serve and support us need your care and attention and time. So along this repair and mending theme, I own a couple of handmade, really nice wooden spoons, and I've been oiling those. And we had purchased a really cool old cutting board from a thrift store, and I refinished it and re-oiled it, and it's just got this lovely glow that had been so dingy, but you could tell it was cool. And so you're just bringing life into these objects, and they're a part of the way you live your life, and it feels important and it feels right that you should invest time and energy back in them. Mm-hmm. And I think, if nothing else, if you don't believe that materials and objects we use have a spirit, if nothing else, it makes you feel better, and it lifts your spirit to thank the items that have served you.
Yeah, I mean, I like it as an extension of, gratitude practices, which, if you're not hip to them yet, everybody, please Google that and get into it, because my life has changed immeasurably for the better once I started being grateful for the things that I have and for the good things that happen to me and around me. Like giving thanks to the things that clothe your body, or that, keep you warm, or that help you cook your food and nourish yourself. Like, that's lovely, Claire. I just vomited about hot lifeguards, and you did a little, you just wrote a little poem about how wonderful it is to care for your items.
I think maybe we should do an episode or a little piece on stacking functions.
Oh, sure.
So stacking functions is basically having one thing you do serve multiple purposes, and the more purposes it serves, the better it is. But it helps me choose in my life beyond. So I love mending because it stacks functions. I'm gaining a skill, I'm repairing an item, I'm repairing my spirit in that, and again, eschewing the consumer throwaway culture. And it just serves so many purposes that I've just found it really calming and also energizing.
It's lovely.
These last month or so.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. I just feel bad about all the things I have thrown away. All the lovely pair of smart wool socks that I've thrown away because I didn't know how to darn. And that's my fault.
Yeah. Yeah, the nice things I have that I've gotten rid of because I couldn't repair, I do have regrets about those. I don't necessarily have regrets about a $4 pair of pajamas that then got a giant hole in them, you know.
Fully agreed.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is there's actually Terry Pratchett, God bless him. He deals a lot with class structures in several of his books, the ones that are set in the city. If you read him, you know what city it is. If the ones that are set in the city usually deal with class dynamics in some way. And he had a scene where this guy who's a cop married a wealthy, noble woman. And he's like realizing that the way people get wealth and keep it is that they never have to buy anything, because whatever they need, their great-grandparents had like the top of the line best version of it, and it's still in the attic because it's really high quality, and all you have to do for a pair of 85-year-old boots is put a new sole on them, and they are still beautiful boots that are functional. And so he described it as the difference between spending $50 on a pair of boots that last for 10 years or spending $10 every year for 10 years. Right. And ultimately, like, and this comes back to, you know, a common catchphrase among the woke, I guess, that poverty is really expensive. Like, if you can only spend $10 on a pair of boots, and that's true, some people cannot buy shoes that cost more than $10 or $20, but you're going to be doing that every year. Whereas if you could buy a $150 pair, you would have that pair for the rest of your life, most likely, and only occasionally have to spend $40 to resole them, you know?
The math piece of that I had thought of, but the perspective of poverty being really expensive is fascinating to me. I've never thought of it or heard it expressed exactly that way.
It's not my idea.
Fuck the system, man.
And that's, fuck the system. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Well, thank you for talking to me today, Teresa.
Thanks for talking to me, Claire.
And thanks to you guys for listening.
Okay. I am under the covers in my bedroom using my computer mic. So if this doesn't work, you let me know. Doesn't matter. This is fun. I'm talking under the covers, and it's like I'm a little kid. Okay, I like that third one a lot. But I'm going to record them all again. Right now. Thank you for listening to It Chooses You. Your hosts are Teresa Sparks and Claire Patton. Our theme song is by Bobby Dart. If you'd like to get in touch with us, drop us an email at itchoosesyouPodcast@gmail.com. Okay. Let me know if you need anything else.